All right. Well, let's go ahead and get things started this morning. Um, I'm Pam Tipton, Senior Director of Custom Executive Education Programs here at the Goizueta Business School. And we are missing Nicola Barrett as she is traveling out of the country to spend time with family and celebrate her mom's birthday. We hope each of you had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and we're especially glad to have you with us this morning for this installment of our Business Over Breakfast webinar series. So for those that celebrate Thanksgiving, I'd love to hear from you. What was your favorite part of the holiday this year? Was it the great food? Was it spending time with family and friends? Was it having time off for rest and renewal? Or was it something else? I mean, for me, those were, I would say, all three of the things I listed, but for some, it might be getting the Christmas decorations or other holiday decorations up, and it might be shopping and getting some of those great deals. But I would love to see family and rest, spending time with daughter and grandkids, cooking. Oh, I love that. Yes, it is always fun to cook because I love being at my brother's house to cook. Spending time, family and friends, great food, rest, all of the above. Yep, I love the all the above. Good. I love hearing that. Well, it was really funny. I did literally have to laugh. Practically the first thing that my beloved aunt said as we brought our luggage in from the car was, just in case you're interested, the scale in the bathroom does work, but you have to hop onto it, hop off, and then hop back on to turn it on. I mean, that was first thing when we arrived for the holiday week. And I just couldn't believe it. But anyway, I recently learned a really interesting fact that out of 218 countries globally, the US ranks as number one in the wellness economy overall. And it ranked number one in 9 out of the 11 subcategories, according to the Global Wellness Institute. But if that's the case, then why are so many people, especially here in the US, challenged with exhaustion, mental well being, brain fog, and burnout? Our faculty guide today might offer that while it is important to be mindful of the scale, creeping upwards as one factor, a more holistic approach to wellness that to me feels more balanced and frankly a whole lot more engaging. So joining us to unlock our intelligence and our well-being is Eric Holshouser, adjunct faculty at Emory School of Medicine and affiliate faculty at Goizueta Business School. Eric actually founded the Physiology and Wellbeing Initiative for MBAs at Goizueta, and he teaches in our Chief Medical Officer program. So in addition to these and other academic endeavors, Eric works for Champion Physical Therapy, where he treats patients with orthopedic impairments, and he is president and founder of Venture Wellbeing and Performance. In his spare time, he enjoys playing basketball, hiking, and being a foodie with his wife. And I have to comment, his dog is named Baloo from Jungle Book, which I really loved knowing. So before I hand it over to Eric, I do want to highlight a couple of upcoming learning opportunities in case you're interested that are launching early next year. So whether you're already a part of or are interested in joining the healthcare innovation movement, check out our Executive MBA 4-credit level course called The Business of Healthcare. And the first session is the first course is moving from volume-based to value-based healthcare delivery. And then we hear that phrase, disrupt or be disrupted, probably all too frequently. We'll learn how to shape the future of business through a digital and analytics lens with our data-driven leadership and digital transformation certificate series starting in early February. It is fully asynchronous and you can do all on your own time. But first, back to today's topic. Eric is going to spend the first 30 to 35 minutes as usual sharing his experiences and insights, and we'll have time for Q&A, but please go ahead and post any questions to the chat or Q&A as we go along, because Eric is happy to answer those at an appropriate time. We'll make sure to try to get to as many of those questions as possible. So Eric, thanks so much for joining us today. We look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Pam. I really appreciate the introduction, and I'm excited to be here with all of you today. A little bit about me, although Pam gave a great introduction. I'm from Florida, grew up in Jacksonville, went to the University of Florida, and I actually started out as a civil engineer and worked for the Haskell Company And a lot of my passion for what I do came from that experience and just spending way too much time at the desk and just kind of seeing my well-being really kind of decline in my first years of work, and being very aware of the chronic disease epidemic in our country, and wanting to make a difference in that area. So at Haskell, being part of the wellness committee wasn't quite enough. I decided to shift careers, come to Emory, where I did the dual degree program, the MBA and Doctor of Physical Therapy. And it's been a lot of fun actually being able to live out my dream all that time sitting in the cubicle, thinking about the impact I want to make, and now having opportunities like this to talk to all of you about ways we can shift the needle on this very important topic. And then, as Pam mentioned, I'm practicing at Champion, which has been a great experience as well. Being a physical therapist, I love it because you get to know so many people, hear their stories, what their health challenges are, and problem solve. Pam mentioned Baloo. This is my wife and I's baby. He's about 10 years old now. We absolutely adore him. And another little fun fact is I got married a year ago, so that's on our honeymoon in Curacao. But before we really dive in today, I'd love to hear from you all. How worried are you? On a scale of 1 to 10, throw it in the chat. How worried are you about the holiday season and the impact on your health? Let's see where we got an 11. So more than worried. 10 is very worried. 0, not at all. 5, kind of in the middle. A smiley face. 1, not too worried. 3, 5. So pretty good mix here. Not worried. We have someone that works out extra hard. So maybe they can be someone that is a little bit of a leader in this area. All right, so it looks like we have a pretty good mix. There's a good number of people that are decently worried or stressed about it. Some people, I guess they got their routines dialed in so that they don't have not worried too much. So that's good to know as we dive in. So get to my next slide here. Have someone that fell off and need to get back. So the agenda to today for today is, exploring our key issue. I'm phrasing this our underdog moment. So we've seen a recent decline in both human intelligence and well-being. Where did this come from? We'll go over how we got here, talk about a little bit about the undeniable human competitive advantage. So a little bit of the evolution of how cognitive and emotional intelligence came to be, and how that can relate to our well-being and performance of organizations. Then we'll go on what to do about it, changing the game. How can we approach intelligence and well-being kind of as a core leadership priority instead of just the add-on wellness program. And then finally, we'll do a call to action, calling it 4 shots in the 4th quarter of 2024. So hopefully we'll leave you all feeling inspired and ready to finish the year strong, and not so worried about the impact of the holidays on your health. So I'm going to start out with a story talking about what I love. My favorite basketball player is Stephen Curry. You may not know this, but he's basically my twin. We are the exact same height, the exact same weight. We were born 2 days apart in March 1988. And I'm pretty convinced that if my dad had me focus on basketball instead of encouraging me with academics, I would be the 3rd Splash brother. For those of you who know, the Splash brothers were Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. They were 2 of the best 3-point shooters of all time in the NBA. But instead, my dad had me focus on academics. So now I'm here with you all today. Although I will allot that there may be some very small difference in innate talent when it comes to basketball, but we'll leave that up for debate. And one thing I love about Steph Curry, not only that we share some of those attributes, is how he was able to change the game of basketball and how he was an underdog. So he's someone that is a lot smaller, not necessarily as fast, can't jump as high, not that strong. And of all the people in the world, he was able to transform the game to be more wide open, be more collaborative, much more passing, shooting, a lot more dynamic. And he went from somebody who's this scrawny high school kid who nobody wanted him to someone who hits 4 3-pointers in the last 3 minutes to win the gold medal for the Olympics. And I think there's a lot of lessons and inspiration we can take from him and his story, because we really do need people like you guys to be that next Steph Curry. How are we going to transform the business world to make it more dynamic, make it healthier, make it so it serves us more, serves our well-being? So first part of our presentation here will be our underdog moment. This is from Steph Curry's freshman year. You can see he maybe doesn't fit in size-wise. But something that's actually really cool before we get into some of the challenges is the Flynn effect. And for those that aren't familiar with it, is our intelligence has improved over time. So this is IQ over time across every part of the world as we've improved our environment, nutrition, learned more, have better mental models about thinking in the world, is our intelligence can actually improve. We have the agency and the ability to improve our intelligence. The problem is that trend stopped and about 15 years ago. And I think this is a really big challenge that not only our society faces, but business community faces. Obviously, if we don't have as much intelligence, then we're not going to be able to solve these problems. Our productivity is going to go down. We're going to be making bad decisions, and this is happening across all education levels. And this study was specifically done in the United States. And not only is our intelligence on a decline, our emotional well-being is suffering as well. So this is prevalence of anxiety. It's affecting the younger generations a lot more than the older, wiser people. But it's still something that's important to worry about. And this isn't just people reporting it more. What we're actually seeing is there's more hospital admissions for self-harm and stuff like that. So we really have some major challenges in this area. And then the other thing that is makes us an underdog, that is something that's a little bit discouraging, is we're spending a lot of money in the United States on our health. Pam mentioned that we have the largest wellness industry in the world. We're spending billions and billions of dollars on this, yet our life expectancy is not improving, and by some measures maybe going down a little bit, whereas a lot of the other developed nations in the world, they're spending a little bit more, but they're also getting that improvement in life expectancy. And along with this, we have, there we go, only 6.8% of our society in the United States has optimal metabolic health. And this is a big deal because metabolic health is not just about, oh, are we going to get overweight or get fat if we don't have good metabolic health? It's basically looks at how well does our body use energy. And a big user of energy, a big user of glucose is our brain. And our brain isn't going to be using energy as efficiently if we don't have that good metabolic health. So this is something that is crucial both to our well-being, how our brain functions, our intelligence, our ability to solve difficult, complex problems. So a little bit about how we got here. So something that we do have is just an incredible and competitive advantage as humans. And I'm going to pose a question. We're going to go way back to the beginning to start to understand this. I want to ask a question in the chat. What is the fundamental question of life? What do you guys think? When you think about most fundamental to life, why we're here, that's always a good one. It's a little bit of a trick question. What is my purpose? Are we alone? How do I help people? I like it, very altruistic. What is our purpose? Make an impact on other people's lives. Where are we coming from? Reaching your highest potential. So let's think even a little bit more fundamentally. I'm surprised that this business group isn't throwing in this answer, but what about survival? So going back to single cell organisms, when they first developed the ability to move, there was basically one simple question: approach or avoid. Do we go towards something or away something? Exactly, adaptability. And so what you see is as soon as we have that, life had that ability to move, you have this explosion of neuronal development. So organisms became more and more complex, more and more intelligent once that ability to move either toward or away something, and that became more and more complex as we went. So what we see is there's this very fundamental link between movement and intelligence. And so we're going to fast forward way in the future. So that was billions of years ago. And then we have Homo sapiens. So what gave us a sustainable competitive advantage as a species? And a lot of people, I think this is kind of the prevailing thought, is that we are just smarter. We were able to think our way to outcompeting the other species, which is partially true, but as we'll see, there's a really much deeper picture involved. So one thing we learned a lot about in our physical therapy education, anatomy and physiology, structure and function tend to go together. So let's take a quick look at where the competitive advantage of the human brain came from. So many of you may be familiar. We have kind of our more rudimentary or less evolved part of our brain. Some of my brother's friends, they call this the lizard brain. A lot just fight, flight, reacting with emotion, that type of thing. And then over that, we have our cerebral cortex. So this is the more evolved part of our brain. This is the part of our brain that's bigger in humans than any other species. You have these different lobes, and the different lobes have different functions. So you have executive processing. So this goes back to that the statue of Rodin, the thinking part of our brain, our problem-solving part, our conscious part. And we become very heavily reliant on this part, and we tend to neglect some of these other very evolved parts of our brain. So one thing you'll notice, the movement processing part is in the same lobe as the executive processing part of our brain, right next to each other. Then we have our one thing we can do better than pretty much every other animal is advanced sensory processing. So we can take in color, images, all the positions of our joint. We can move in much more complex ways. All of that information that comes from our joints, our senses, gets processed in very complex ways. And then the other thing that sets us apart is our emotional processing or social processing. And these things work together to give us a competitive advantage as humans. So these are the things that give rise to both cognitive and emotional intelligence working together. If you think about it, when we think about emotional intelligence, we have to perceive other people's facial expressions, body language that goes into the advanced sensory processing. We're able to communicate in different ways based on the situation. We're able to adjust our own body language, our own facial expressions, tones of voice, all of these things, and it's controlled by this executive center. And as we evolved, we function best when we're using all of these pieces of our brain. For any of you who have played sports or dance, when you're using all of these parts of our brain, it just kind of feels like we're in the zone, we're in that state of flow. And it's a pretty cool experience. But we often neglect these key areas of the brain. So our environments are often processed or are artificial. We work and study in sedentary environments. A lot of our thinking has become very distracted with all these notifications, email, smartphones, and there's a lot more polarized thinking, especially in the past few years. And then we have disrupted social engagement. So people are spending so much time on these platforms that don't provide the same richness of social interaction. And all these things are not good for our brain. Not to mention those things that influence metabolic health and brain function, like ultra-processed food, inadequate sleep, lack of restorative downtime, or chronic stress, and just not getting enough of that exercise. So all of these factors tend to downregulate our brain function, so we're not performing at a high level or really enjoying life the way we want to. So that begs the question is like, how aligned is our work environment and culture with the fundamental factors that support human intelligence? And this is something I'm incredibly passionate about, is how do we make our organizations, our lifestyles aligned with these things. So probably some of you can relate. We get into this cycle where we work and we're working in a way that actually decreases our well-being, and then we're not performing as well, and that kind of feeds into this feedback loop. I'm talking to many of my friends and colleagues. A lot of times we feel like work is making us less healthy and not really sending us in the direction that we want. So how do we shift that to where our work environment and culture improves our well-being, improves our performance, improves our intelligence? And if you think about it, the whole point of work is to improve our quality of life. If we're working to decrease our quality of life, we might as well just do nothing and stay home. So I think we need to really be more mindful of how can we use work to really improve our quality of life. And another question around here, this is, do you want to be your boss? And I think if we solve some of these problems, more people will want to stay in their organization. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the lack of employee engagement. So only 30% of employees are highly engaged. About 50% of employees are open to leaving their organization. This is something I personally experienced in my previous job. There were a lot of good things about my previous job, but when I looked at my boss's boss, I had respect for them of what they were able to do, but at the end of the day, like I didn't want to be them. And but if we have supervisors, bosses, executives that are people we really want to be, that we look up to, then we're not going to want, employees aren't going to want to leave. And I think a big part of that is how we conduct our lives, our health. Like when I would look at people higher up in my organization, they had all these health problems, they were struggling, and I was like, I don't want that life. If I keep going down this path, I'm just going to end up like them. So we've established a bit of a problem here, but let's talk about what can we do about it. So how can we change the game? So one, I think, dichotomy here is you can solve it with like different wellness programs, or really seeing it as a core leadership priority. You're focusing on leader behaviors to influence this. And now, nothing against wellness programs, but when I was working in engineering, I felt like what impacted my well-being the most wasn't um, the step competitions or like these little incentives to get moving that our company had. Those were cool, they were nice, but it was individuals in the company, people that were higher up that would invite me to go on a bike race, or I would see them and how they conducted themselves on a day-to-day basis, that invited people out with them to do things that were good for them. And I want to kind of get a pulse of, that was my experience with it, but I want to get your experience. Let's do a quick bit of market research here. So we'll do a net promoter score. How likely would you be to recommend a wellness program that you've been a part of to measurably improve the intelligence and well-being of an organization? So that would be 1 to 10 net promoter. We got a 10. I'd love to hear more about these 10s. So we got 2, 1, 2, 10, some in the middle. Okay. So it sounds like some people have had some great experiences, which is awesome. The program involved professionals in brain health. Nice. So it sounds like we have some pretty strong wellness programs that are out there. That is awesome, and I'm really glad to hear that. At the same time, there's a lot of people that gave those 1s and 2s as well, and sometimes monthly chair massages. That's a good one. I could go for those. But I think one thing that we can't forget about is really just the leader behavior piece. And I know wellness programs, they tend to be good for the people that already care, that are already taking care of themselves. But what we need is that leadership to really shift the culture and shift it on a large scale. So that goes back to the idea of like what Steph Curry was able to do. And another thing that I love about him is that not only did he change the game, he did it with so much joy and love for the game. Like when you watch somebody like him, he's just ecstatic, and he just brings this presence that is infectious to everyone around them, that makes other people better. And for this presentation, I want to focus on that. Like, how do we create that in our business community? Yeah, if you ever had a serious illness, probably one or two. Yeah, it can definitely, when you've had some difficult, that was from the chat, if you've had some difficult experiences, that can really shift your perspective. And I think that's another reason why we need to make progress in this, because a lot of these serious illnesses and people missing work come from that environment and that culture. So we're getting to the end of 2024 with Steph Curry. One of the things that he did is he hit 4 3-pointers in the last 3 minutes of the gold medal game to win the game. So we're right at December 5th. If you split up the year into quarters, we're at almost exactly 3 minutes left in the year, relatively, if you look at that time scale. So what can we do as a community, as leaders, to shift the needle on this stuff? And I think if we all take these 4 shots and make these 4 shots in 24, and at the end of 2024, we're going to leave ourselves in a place where we can feel good about the holidays with our health, well-being, our intelligence, and hopefully have a lot of joy through this holiday season. So, shot number 1, steps of good cheer. So one thing that people spend a lot of time on is social media. Hopefully this audience doesn't spend quite as much time as my MBA students, where some of them spent, the average is probably 2 to 3 hours, and some of them are spending 9-10 hours a day on those platforms. But let's find some richer ways to connect with people. And one thing I really like is just taking a walk and calling 3 people just for a quick check-in. In our society, everything tends to be transactional in so many spaces, but it's so nice to get a call where somebody's not asking for something or having an agenda. Somebody just picks up the phone and says, "Hey, how are you doing? I was just thinking about you." And just chatting for a few minutes, that will give you a great little serotonin, oxytocin bump. Oxytocin, for those of you who don't know, is the bonding hormone, and it's actually one of the most powerful anti-inflammatories, and can counteract a lot of the negative effects that we see. Actually, one of the communities with the lowest rates of heart disease was the Rosettans, and they actually didn't take that good a care of themselves from a physical standpoint, but they had really rich and deep social connections. So go for a walk, call someone up, either it can be a friend, colleague, also a great way to network and just check in. Hey, how are you doing? I was just thinking about you. And wanting to hear about your life. Who doesn't want to hear that? And do it while you're taking a walk. So get moving this holiday season. Take a lesson from our I can't remember the name of the person, a friend in the chat, that ups their physical activity during the holidays so they can eat as much as they want. Which maybe I shouldn't say this. I love to eat during the holidays. So that brings us into shot number 2, feed the soul and the cells. So advice here is embrace the season. So we have different seasons where maybe we're cutting back, but the holidays, it's a season to indulge, to really feed your soul and really appreciate the things that we have. And I hate to see it when people are worried about diets and cutting back, and like Pam mentioned with the scale during the holidays. There's other times for that. I don't think the holidays is a time for worrying about that stuff. But there's ways we can do it in a healthier way, where we still really enjoy it. So one is eating high quality foods first. Fill yourself up on a lot of these vegetables, healthy fats, lean proteins. If you eat this stuff first, you're not going to overindulge quite as much on the sugary treats that aren't good for us. Another thing we can do is just savor the eating experience and eat slowly. One thing people don't realize is our satiety signals from our body, they're a little bit delayed. So if we eat fast, we're going to be hungrier. But if you take time to just be mindful and chew slowly, experience your food, you're actually going to eat a much more appropriate amount of calories, and you can rely on some of those natural signals from our body to keep us from overindulging. There's also, healthy fats, polyphenols, stuff that's in olive oil. It actually helps reduce or actually increase our feelings of satiety, so we don't overindulge. And then another thing we can do is appreciate the love put into the meals. Like most of these meals, pretty much all of them, whether you get them from restaurant or family members, friends, they put effort into that. People are working hard. Everyone's can be stressed during the holiday season with all the things they have, the demands. Take a moment and just really appreciate the effort put into the food, the thought put into the food. And I think when we do that, it also makes us feel a little bit more full. And finally, forget about the scale. I can do a whole nother webinar on why not to use scales to weigh ourselves. There's much better ways for measuring body composition. But for now, at least during this season, don't worry about that piece of it right now. Focus on healthy habits, getting healthy foods into you, enjoying the food. And then shot number 3, again, back to some physical activity. So run a festive 5K with a friend. Find a holiday 5K to walk or run. Invite a friend or a family member. And go on a few training walk or runs to prepare. You don't have to be an Olympic runner or be in super great shape to do it. Even if you're dealing with some physical impairments, a lot of these races have a 1 mile option, and it's okay to walk. Or I have a foot injury that I'm dealing with, so I'm gonna go next weekend, and I'm gonna slowly jog and walk through a 5K. And actually, if anyone wants to join me, at the end I'll put a link in the chat to the 5K that I'm going to be doing. It's on Sunday morning. I believe it's it's either the 14th or the 15th. I can't remember which day is Sunday, but it's Sunday morning on the Beltline. So I'd love to have some of you join me out there. It'd be great to meet some of you in person, get out, share some holiday fun, and get active. Oh. And then shot number 4, get back to the heart of the holidays. So one thing when it comes to physiology that we don't think about is how important purpose is. People who have a deep sense of purpose live so much longer than other people. It has actual effects on our cellular biology when we have that sense of purpose. So don't forget about that. Take time to focus on the core message of the season for whatever faith or perspective you hold. That might be, and I like the idea of connecting with something bigger. So somebody who's not religious, it might be just appreciating the natural wonder of the cosmos. Before there was even Christmas, the pagans in Europe, they had the symbol of the Christmas tree. The evergreen symbol was a symbol that the spring and better times and warmth were coming in the future. But then those of us that have that faith tradition, that's something that can be really important to dive into, reconnect with, whether it be going to church or doing a devotional or volunteering, connecting with family, and kind of remembering that core message of hope and helping people in need can really make the holidays something that's so much more enjoyable and healthy, and it's going to pay as much dividends as eating the right foods or um, being active or whatever else you're trying to do to be healthy. So the fourth shot, the game sealer in the fourth quarter with 30 seconds left. Pick one small activity that is meaningful to you and schedule a time to do that this holiday season. So if we all do these four things this holiday season, if we sink all four of these shots, just imagine the type of ripple effect that we have. Let's all be Steph Curry this holiday season, finish strong in 2024, and impact those around us, shift the culture, create that ripple effect, and bring that joy when we do it. I think that's one of the most important things, is just living with that sense of joy, appreciating the small things, and getting active. And I think we will surprise ourselves with how much of an impact we can make, how many lives we can change, whether it be people on our team, people in the community, or even our own lives and people in our family, if we just take a little bit of time to do some of these activities over the holiday season. And you can walk away confident that you did enough for yourself during the holidays to take care of your health, so you don't have to worry about the scale, you don't have to worry about whatever waistline or diet thing. Worry about that in the new year, and embrace the season. All right, that concludes our presentation. I also want to quickly acknowledge Steve Walton. He's a professor at Emory Business School, and he's someone that I spent a lot of time talking to these ideas about. So I just want to give him credit for just all of his support as we've talked about these ideas. And I definitely wouldn't have had this presentation prepared, at least not to the level of quality, without him. So big thank you to Steve. And finally, I'd love to connect. I have my LinkedIn QR code here. Feel free to shoot me a message. Hopefully, I'll get to meet some of you over the course of the next months and year. I've never done one of these where I can't see any of my audience, and I think, especially in the holidays, I think one of the great things is being able to connect with people. So hope to actually get to know you on a personal level as we move forward. And with that, I want to thank you all. Thank you for your time and this opportunity, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Eric, thank you so much. I agree. So I'm now going back through, Linda commented it was wonderful. She feels rejuvenated and ready to end the year strong. So I want to go back to, we've gotten a couple of questions in, and one I'm going to generate based on a comment that Gary made in the chat probably 10 or 15 minutes ago. But he commented that with those company incentive programs, that there's the challenge was the continuity of participants in the program. There were times when everyone was engaged and then it fell off after a period of time. So I'm curious, with the many demands that leaders face, and everything seems to be a priority. I think about the challenges we hear from so many of our clients. What recommendations do you have for these programs not being short-lived?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. Thank you. I think and that definitely is a challenge, is like everything seems important. And I have two answers to that. One is we need leaders to just focus on the small things. So making those small adjustments day to day and really embracing that and having that commitment to check in with people. The other thing I think we need, and this is another Steph Curry lesson, is sometimes you just have to be better and more skilled. So I think one way you can make a difference is being really good at your job. So then you can create that space to focus on some of this stuff. We need people to be able to step up and be able to take care of their health and well-being and be really good at their job, and that will give other people that inspiration that, hey, I can do this too, right? So if a lot of people just they want to do this stuff, but they just don't believe it's possible. So we need those people to be like, no, I'm going to draw a line in the sand. I believe this is possible. I can do it, and I can do it performing at a high level.
Well, on a related note, then, you talked a lot about gathering with colleagues or friends or whatever during the holidays to go do a 5K. And it doesn't even have to be a 5K, but, have your social time be a walk or a run or whatever. But what if you're running into resistance and, you really are, family, friends, colleagues, coworkers, whatever, are resistance to that focus on personal health? Do you have any advice for those situations?
Yeah, this is a personal one because I've definitely had that with family members and where like in certain seasons they're maybe not as focused and they don't care, and you might listen to a webinar like this and be super passionate and see, oh, there's so much possibilities, and then other people, they just have other things on their mind that they're worried about. And I think sometimes we just need to give other people a little bit of grace and be patient with them, is one thing. And find small things that you can move the needle with those people. Like if you think about that marketing funnel, like it starts with awareness and then it goes all the way to like decision and action with that. So maybe it's just modeling that behavior first. I think one mistake that I've always made with my family and close friends is I'll have an idea and I'll be like, hey, we all need to get on board with this, but I haven't made the changes myself. So taking that month or two to really implement those habits yourself, and people will see that. They'll notice, hey, there's something different about this person. I think that's the most powerful way that like we can impact those people that have resistance, because I think it's very easy to get frustrated. It's like, oh, this is a good idea. I hear this a lot in the exec ed courses I teach, is like, oh, I have this great idea, but nobody listens, nobody cares. Like, how do I get that voice? And I think when we make changes ourselves and people see a difference, then that resistance tends to go down.
Mm-hmm. We got a question that really resonates with me because I used to be a runner. I was a competitive runner earlier in my life, but knee arthritis has stopped that. So now I'm more of a speed walker. But if somebody has physical limitations, especially something like knee pain or other joint pain, that might prohibit them, or they feel like it prohibits them from participating in a group run, especially, what are some ideas that you
Yeah.
have?
Yeah, so I think, well, I mean, one as a PT, I'll give a plug for PT. Go see a physical therapist and see, what you can do to get moving again in a better way. There's a lot of people, the patients that I've had, that they might have arthritis, but just because you have arthritis doesn't mean you can't do a lot. And actually, movement is really good for stuff like arthritis, but you just need to know exactly the amount of movement that's appropriate for you. So I'd say, and what types of things you need to strengthen. And then the other thing is, you don't have to run. Like if it's a 5K, like you can walk, you can find other ways to be out and active. You can, maybe not this time of year, but get in the pool is another good option. My mom loves water aerobics. She's like, and she lives in Jacksonville, which usually doesn't get too cold, but she's out at 9 a.m. in 45-degree weather, and the pool's heated, but doing her water aerobics class, stuff like that can be really good for people
Mhm.
that have those limitations.
Well, I would also encourage, folks to not shy away from a 5K. So I had a group of friends and we all signed up for the Winship 5K this year. One of my friends has been doing it for years. Some of them are runners, some of them are walkers. And this was my first year in the Winship 5K. I've done other 5Ks before, but I'm not running, but I am speed walking. And so what was funny is we had a group of folks that ran and they got there way before the rest of us. And then I was a speed walker and came in, and then some of the ones who were just walking came in, and it was great. And we all got together at the beginning, we all got together at the end, and we had that social opportunity together around something that was both benefiting others as well as ourselves from a fitness perspective. So I would just encourage folks not to shy away from those.
Yeah, I think it can be a lot of fun when
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
you're out
Eric, you
there.
mentioned specifically around the 5K that you're going to be doing in December, and you would
Yeah.
post some things in the chat. But I am curious because I've heard this question from others. If I've never run a 5K and I'd like to do that, what are some ways to get started? And I don't know if that's something you can share right now or if you want to post some resources in the chat. But what's a good way for somebody to get started so that they feel equipped to do a 5K?
Yeah, so I mean, I think you'll want to ease yourself up to it. But I mean, if you're trying to do it next week, my recommendation is spend like either just walk it, no shame in that, or do a couple training runs, maybe 2 miles where you slowly jog a minute and walk a minute.
Mhm.
I think one of the biggest mistakes people make when they get into running is they've been sitting on their couch for 9 months, and then they're like, all right, I'm going to go out for a 5 mile run, and then they're going to get injured. So just ease into it. And I think kind of a general rule of thumb is, yeah, focus more on just like moderate intensity, where like if you activities that you can maybe breathe in a little bit hard but can hold a conversation, that's kind of right where you want to be, and then don't go too long.
Okay, great. And we've got one final question before we transition to sharing what's coming next for Business Over Breakfast. We had a participant who's interested in hearing about your transition from being a civil engineer into the wellness realm. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was a big transition, obviously, and my mom thought I was crazy because I had a good job. She's like, "What are you doing going back to school?" So, but for me, I just really wanted to work on something that I thought was like something that was impacting our society at a high level, and at least make some level of impact with it. So like I said in the presentation, like I saw that the chronic disease epidemic is something that is just so big, and is affecting so many of our loved ones, and I wanted to be a part of that solution. And yeah, I had to go back to school, take prereqs, um, which was kind of an interesting experience. And like learning what there were people undergrads I was taking prereqs with, and adjusting back to school, but it was 100% worth it. I think it's, for me, it's this field is just something I'm so passionate about, and work, instead of being something I'm dreading, it's like, oh, I'm learning something new and interesting, either about other people or myself, almost every day. So
Mm.
I'd do it over again 100 times.
Wow, that is great. Well, Eric, thank you so much for sharing your insights and experiences and advice. It is rejuvenating, and it's exciting to hear especially some of even the nutritional things. It's, feed your soul and your cells, and fill up on some of those healthier fats and foods first, because there are healthy fats out there and they can certainly help fill you up before you eat too many of the stuff that's terrible for you, but enjoy, and be social. So thank you so much. So I'm going to share what's coming next for Business Over Breakfast. We have some fun and exciting things coming up, and some will be very familiar to those of you who've been with us for a while. So let me get my screen share up here. Great. So coming up on December 19th, we are super excited to welcome Tom Smith back to the mic, as we say, for a reprise of The Economy and Me. So a look back on 2024 and looking ahead to 2025 and what we might expect. And then coming in January, we're going to take that first week off. So we always have our Business Over Breakfast webinars the first and third Thursdays of the month. But we're taking that first week off, as we all are, some of us at least, are still on holiday. And then on January the 16th, we're welcoming Wei Yang, who is our academic dean, and she will be talking about the electoral democracy in corporate America. So what that means is essentially how shareholder voting and activism can shape governance and frankly, many other things, value creation, decision-making inside of corporations. So we're looking forward to that. And as I mentioned at the front end of the webinar, we have a number of courses coming up. I featured our Business of Healthcare as well as our digital certificates. In addition to those, we have several others that are launching in early spring. So our managerial leadership program, which is for leaders, mid-level leaders in the business, and especially those who want to up their game in terms of leading teams and others. You don't have to be a direct supervisor, but especially if you've got involvement with direct reports or project teams, this is a great one for you, and it gives self-awareness and insight about your own leadership style. Executive communications and leadership presence hones in on you and how you are representing yourself and sharing messages in your executive narrative. And then leveraging AI for business has been a really popular one, especially in this day and age when AI is used more and more frequently for more and more business value generation. So we hope that you will check us out on our website or shoot us an email at executiveeducation@emory.edu. Thanks again for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you at our next Business Over Breakfast as we welcome Tom Smith. And Eric, we want to thank you again for joining us today. We're so excited to have you with us, and we look forward to a joyous and healthy holiday season. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure.